Professor Dershowitz, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, and you?
Very good. Alan, I've got one question for you at the end that I have to ask you before you go away, because Stu and I were asking when we hung up, and I really want some advice from you on something. But let's start with Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden is testifying on what today?
Well, it depends on what they want to ask him. The first question I would ask him is, was President Biden sitting next to you? He wasn't president at the time, but former Vice President Biden sitting next to you when you tweeted to the Chinese businessman saying, my father is sitting next to me, and if you don't pay the money, my father will go after you. Did your father know about that WhatsApp? Was he sitting next to you? Were you lying? That's the first question I would ask him.
And if you were his attorney, how would you advise him to answer?
Well, I think I would try to take the Fifth Amendment, but he's not going to be able to because his lawyers have said
Why?
that the plea bargain ends the investigation against him. I'm not sure that's true, though, because the judge has to accept the plea bargain. And if this judge does his or her duty, they won't accept the plea bargain. The judge should say, look, Merrick Garland says he gave Weiss, the U.S. attorney, all the authority to investigate the cases against him in the District of Columbia, in Los Angeles, etc. That's what Garland says it under oath and says it on television. Now, Weiss has said, apparently to 6 people, no, I didn't have that authority. When I tried to investigate him, the U.S. attorney shut me down. Now, was that just a misunderstanding, or did somebody not tell the truth? Those are the kinds of questions that have to be asked. Is Biden going to plead the fifth?
Now, is Weiss going? So. Is Weiss going under oath too?
I would hope so. I would hope that the judge would put the two of them under oath.
This could be a massive turning point today. If all of these people are put under oath and they say under oath what they've already said, at least the whistleblowers, this cracks this case wide open.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. They have to prove that what the whistleblowers are saying is true. People lie under oath on both sides, on all sides. So What we have right now is probable cause. We have enough to go forward, enough to investigate, enough to subpoena, enough to, if you need a search warrant, get a search warrant. There's enough for all of that. There's not enough to prosecute, to impeach. That needs to turn what is hearsay testimony into actual testimony. In some cases, there may be documentary proof. In other cases, there may be other kinds of unassailable truths or corroboration. The quality of the evidence matters a great deal. The problem that the Trump team has is that it has provided the evidence that the other side needs because Trump talks too much. He made that statement to the writer and to the publisher, and that's on tape, etc. The Bidens have been much more careful, not enough, certainly not Hunter Biden, but President Biden has been fairly careful. He hasn't made any of the kinds of statements that Trump has made that have gotten Trump in trouble. You know, the famous plaque that some fishermen have in their houses with the stuffed fish that says, I'd still be swimming if I had kept my mouth shut. And Trump should have put that in his house because I think he has created most of his own problems.
But you have Hunter Biden now coming, and does the judge have to go into all of the new evidence, or is it just he should?
He should.
Pardon me?
And here's the problem. Neither side wants him to do that. Hunter Biden's thrilled with the plea bargain. No jail time. His lawyers did a phenomenal job. No jail time. Not even a conviction on the issue of the gun application, just a diversion program. Fantastic deal from their point of view. So they're not going to want to challenge it. And the government agreed, and they're probably not going to challenge it. So what we need is a neutral organization like Judicial Watch going into court and seeking to file an amicus application, amicus friend of the court brief, saying, look, we represent the people of the United States. We want to know the truth. Neither party here wants the truth to come out, but we do, Judge, and we want you to hold this hearing. That's what I would do if I were Judicial Watch.
And why haven't they done it yet, do you know?
I don't know. They should. Maybe they have. Maybe they're thinking about it. But somebody should be intervening in that case and not just to let the plea bargain go by as if there's no public interest here. Judges have the right to deny a plea bargain if the plea bargain is not in the public interest or not in the interest of justice. They rarely do it, but they have the power to do it.
Wouldn't this be a case where unless you were a partisan hack, you would be very tempted to do it because you would see this will just sweep everything under the rug?
I agree, but this is a Delaware judge. And Delaware is a small town community with a lot of home cooking. And it's not the legal system that I put the most faith in among all the legal systems I've been in. I've been in Delaware in the legal system, and it doesn't have a high standard of justice. So I don't have any complete faith or certainty that this judge will do the right thing. I hope the judge does.
Is this going to be televised?
No. Generally,
shouldn't it be?
Not. Of course, everything should be televised. The trial of Donald Trump in New York should be televised. The trial of Donald Trump in Florida should be televised. The hearing that they had just when he pleaded not guilty should have been televised. You know, when you watched the left-wing media, they described Donald Trump as sitting, slouching, looking defeated. And the conservative media described the same scene, saying he was bold, his chest was out, he looked defiant. We can't even, and the courtroom auditors who drew him got criticized for making him look too young and too thin and too handsome. And so if you can't even believe the courtroom artists, everything is so biased and divided in the United States. There's no such thing as truth anymore. There's one side's version and the other side's version, both of which claim to be truth, and often neither of them are.
So tell me what happens if this judge just decides to take the plea bargain. Is it all over?
That's really the end of the case, yeah. I don't think anybody has a standing to appeal it. So that would be the end of the matter. And then the question comes up, what if they come up with new material outside of Delaware? Does the plea bargain cover any alleged crimes that took place outside of Delaware? His lawyers have said no, but the law generally says yes, you can investigate. Jeffrey Epstein had that. Remember, he made a plea bargain. I was part of it in Florida, and we thought the plea bargain ended the whole case. And then, of course, they arrested him in Teterboro Airport, and the rest we know. So the law is very uncertain, and it sometimes depends on the exact words of the plea bargain.
So if you're making a plea, if I'm, the president's people and Hunter's people, I'm pushing this plea bargain, and I'm trying to find a judge that will hear it, that is most likely just to close it. So what are you expecting today? Well,
I don't think we get that today. I think we get that in a few weeks. Today, I think we hear questions, and I don't know the exact scope of what the questions can be, but Congress has plenary authority, just unlimited authority, as part of our system of checks and balances, to question anybody about anything involving the judiciary or the executive branch. And so if you have congressional hearings in front of the Judiciary Committee, controlled by the Republicans today, they can ask him all these questions, and he can't refuse to submit to a subpoena. He can try to plead the fifth, but then they can give him immunity. Even if he pleads the fifth, they can give him what's called use immunity. You got to testify, and what you tell us can't be used against you, but it can be used against other people. And then ask him questions about his father, about family members, and try to see whether there's any truth to these very, very serious claims of enrichment. But we have to find out whether it's true.
So, but that's not double jeopardy?
No, it's not double jeopardy, and it depends on the nature of the plea bargain. Look, in my book, which you talked about before, Get Trump, I go through how extensive this basic conspiracy has been to try to do everything possible to determine the outcome of the next election by preventing Donald Trump from running for re-election. And in my book, Get Trump, I go through every one of the charges against him, in New York and Florida and Georgia and in Washington, D.C. And I also talk about the cases against the Bidens. And the question that's raised in my book, Get Trump, is there a single standard of justice? Or is there a special standard that seems to operate against Donald Trump and perhaps in favor of the Biden family? That's the hard question that every American should be asking.
We should know the questions today. Anything in particular we should look for to be able to see which way the judge might be leaning?
I don't like to ever read tea leaves. Let's find out. Let's see, and we'll know the answer.
Okay.
But I've been doing this too long to try to predict what judges will do.
Okay. So, Alan, the one thing that I was talking to my producer when you were on last, I said, if I were ever in trouble, the first guy I would call is Alan Dershowitz.
God forbid.
Because
don't get in trouble. I don't like to get.
I know, God forbid.
From friends, yeah.
I know, God forbid. But we're entering a time where people like me could be charged with anything because we're, we're just entering those times.
I've already been charged. There's an organization called the 65 Project, which announced that it was going to seek bar discipline against any lawyer who had anything to do with Donald Trump. And so I announced in an op-ed, if they do that, I will defend free any lawyer who is attacked by Project 65 simply for defending Trump. So what do you think they did? They filed the bar charge against me because I defended Donald Trump as well. And so now I have to spend money and time trying to respond to an absurd bar charge, but I have to spend the time and energy. And that's their goal. Their goal is to deter people from
defending people
who they don't like.
So what I wanted to know, Alan, is, hopefully this is a long time from now that if I ran into trouble, who is it that you trust? Who is it that you say, this person is actually honorable and will be John Adams?
Well, that's the hard question today. There are fewer and fewer people who are John Adams, who are willing to incur the wrath of the community around them the way I've incurred the wrath of Martha's Vineyard community and other communities that I was part of, the liberal Democrat community who won't talk to me anymore, won't allow me to speak. That's hard. There are still a few left. And, I could give you a list of names, but I don't want to leave people off the list. But I would say there are a handful of lawyers today that you can really trust to do justice without regard to partisan considerations. And that's too few.
That is terrifying. Alan, I would like to get that list from you off air, but thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
Professor Alan Dershowitz.